All right, Nate, you're back in Alberta. COVID is still impacting our lives and obviously the World Junior Hockey Championship. So when you look back at the experience of last year where Team USA won the gold medal, does that gold medal run make it any easier, given that experience, to come back into that world again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, having the experience and then doing it again at the World Championships for me, you understand how to manage life in the bubble. I think there's some advantages, there's some disadvantages. The advantage is your team is going to get closer because they're together all the time, and the disadvantage is obviously you got to make sure that guys stay sharp, stay active, and stay focused. Because it's easy to kind of lay around a little bit.
How much more of a challenge is that with a bunch of teenagers? I have kids that have gone past teenagers and some that are coming into it. And I'm like, man, you got to keep 25 kids occupied. And once the game's over, it's pretty easy to just go plop on their bed and that's the end of it.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a group that likes each other. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is that the groups that really like each other and love each other, they're all going to spend time together. They're all going to intermingle. I could hear it last night. I went to bed pretty early last night, and there had to be a group of guys up above me because you could tell there are 8, 10 in the room, hooting and hollering about something. So I think it really, you got to have a group that loves each other and wants to be around each other a lot.
When the protocols came out, of course, they're getting more and more stringent, it seems like, by the minute. But when they first came out and you guys realized, okay, we're going to have to, get to our spot and bubble kind of by the 15th and pick our team early and all that, what set of challenges does that give to you?
Well, with the college schedule, it was a big challenge because all the teams played until the 12th. Mm-hmm. So our number one challenge was, in the previous year, we had 7 days to be together and kind of pick the team. This year we had 2.5 days, and we went from 32 to 25. So it was short, and it really made you're as a coach, you're trying to get in, your identity, in those 5 practices, but you also have to find a way to evaluate guys, so we could make some good decisions. And I think the other challenge about the bubble and being in the 15th is just losing players. We lost a pretty good player in Thomas Bordelot.
Right.
And it's that, I could tell you, we lost a couple guys last year, one being Bordelot. It's frustrating because it's the protocol for the tournament is hard to understand. And it's hard to make a family like Thomas's understand that Kent Johnson tested positive 4 days earlier. He's able to be in the tournament. Thomas Bordelot, you tested positive 4 days later. You can't be in the tournament. And it's that's the struggle with, being in a bubble on the 15th and trying to understand that.
You mentioned Bordelot and last year, and I've got him in my notes 2 years in a row, and I've got a check beside him 2 years in a row. The poor kid can't play either time. How has he been able to, or what have you been able to see in talking to him? Like, how does he bury the disappointment of this? I mean, he will, but that's the human side of all of this.
Well, I first of all, I think it speaks volumes to Thomas about what he did last year after the disappointment. He was rookie of the year in NCAA hockey. And, he turned a negative situation into a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and a driver, and he kind of put it into another level and had a tremendous season. Knowing from what I know from Thomas, I think he'll do the same. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 5 player in college hockey in the second half of the season. He's a great kid. He loves to play the game, but I can tell you, like, he's heartbroken, and I'm heartbroken, and, I'm heartbroken for him. I mean, it's as I mentioned earlier, it's just the situation's tough to understand.
Right now. Yeah. It's so hard to see these kids that get right to the cusp of what is the biggest moment of their lives to this time. And it's just gone. And the 4 days difference of testing really mattered in the entirety for Bordelot, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, we tested everyone on the 5th, everyone that was getting invited to camp on the 5th. And, with the realization that if someone tested positive on the 5th, they could still enter the bubble on the 15th, because then they'd have a 10-day quarantine. Well, Kent Johnson, I think, tested positive on the 3rd or the 4th. And then Bordelot tests positive after the 5th. And so his 10-day quarantine, takes him to a space that he's not able to enter the bubble. Now we're all just sitting in this bubble, right?
Yeah.
And you feel like, there's no logical reason why a kid couldn't enter the bubble now after his 10 days of quarantine, to do 2 or 3 more days of quarantine up here and then join the team. That's the hard part that, to understand. But, we knew the rules going in, and every country knew the rules. And I think Finland lost a pretty good player also, with a similar situation. So it's adversity. And that, I guess, back to your original question, one thing you learn about this tournament is that there's a lot of adversity, and you have to stay pretty even keel. You have to have backup plans. You got to be ready to just kind of overcome and understand that there's going to be tough time, and that's one of the biggest things we learned last year. That was a tough time for us. We got to move on and make sure we're preparing our team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to take from Nate was, you faced that similar adversity last year and clearly persevered. So when you look at this group of young men, what do you see as the strength, the backbone of Team USA?
Our decor, I think, will be a strength. I think we can. I like our defensemen. I think they can play both sides of the puck. And I think our top 2 lines are going to have a really good identity. I think they're going to be able to play the game whatever way the game's played. I think they can play on the rush. I think they can play on the power play. I think they can play in zone. So I don't think we're going to have, we're not just, this team, I think, won't just be a rush team. I think we're going to be able to play the game a lot of different ways.
Probably pretty important in a tournament when it's not like in your league, teams can change a little bit, but you're talking about countries playing different styles of games, correct? You've got to be versatile to get through all of them. And you're in a hellacious bracket in Red Deer.
The bracket makes you better. The bracket makes you better. And that's what, the tournament is all about, making sure you're playing your best when it matters. But so you do like and appreciate being in a hard bracket, because it's going to make you better in throughout the tournament. But being versatile, Ray, is key. That's one of the big things I learned with our defensemen last year, is they have to be able to handle traps. They have to be able to handle hard forechecks. And I think that's the same thing with your team. Your team's got to be able to produce on the rush, and you got to be able to produce in zone play. You have to be versatile, because you don't know, some of these teams that back up and kind of 0-5 you or really sit back. Well, they force you to earn it. You got to get pucks behind them. You got to get in there and get your body over it and produce your offense that way, because if you just try to be a rush team or just try to skate through it, you're going to get really frustrated.
Last year with the way the tournament played out, there seemed to be more draft eligible guys playing significant roles in various countries. For you last year was Matty Beniers, who, for a lot of us, we had just seen clips of him, and then you watch him play and you're like, geez, this kid's really good. Like he's just a solid guy all over the place. Could that be Logan Cooley this year for you?
Well, I certainly hope so.
He's pushed into a bigger role, is he not?
Yeah, he's definitely pushing a bigger role with Bordelot being out. But I've mentioned a couple of times in the summer, he really looked a little timid at the start. We had an 8-day camp in the summer. He really looked timid at the start, and then he kept getting better and better, and eventually was I would say one of the top 5 forwards for US in the camp. So, and I've noticed him doing it again, with us. I think it takes him a couple of days to feel comfortable. I think it would be like that with anyone. And, I remember when I did the tournament in 2007, we had James Van Riemsdyk in a very similar role.
Right.
So I had some experience with it, with a younger guy. And, the one thing that we did with Logan is we put him in a big role right away and we said, go. He's with two really good wingers, 2 of our heavier wingers. And, he keeps getting better every day. So the exhibition against Finland will be a great test for him. But I'm excited for him. I'm excited for his tournament. And, he's a guy that we hope continues to get better and better throughout the tournament.
Well, speaking of getting better throughout the tournament, let's go back to last year. Trevor Zegras, clearly the tournament MVP, 2 points for you in the gold medal win. How closely are you marking his career to this point now that he's a budding star for the Anaheim Ducks? And obviously, I've got to ask you about the assist. Lots of coaches have weighed in on the old alley-oop pass to Sonny Milano. What do you think? And are you at all surprised at the level of Trevor Zegras' NHL success to this point?
Not surprised in one bit. Trevor has a creative side about him that's really unique. And, the thing that I stayed in contact with Trevor after the tournament. He was up and down in the American League, would send him the occasional text, just checking in. I love the assist. I love the creativity. He's a really good kid deep down. He's a team kid. The one thing that no one took a great look at from last year is how hard he worked away from the puck in the tournament for us. And I was really happy for him for that. But I love the assist. I think it's a great play. Now, he's one of the guys that can make it work, right?
Right.
You probably don't want guys that can't make that work trying it, but it scored a goal. Goals are hard to score.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a beautiful play. It's so I like it,
So Nate, I've been fascinated with this. This is now like 13 years I've done the tournament. And of course, through my wife, I know a little bit more about USA Hockey and how you guys have really pushed the skill into the younger kids' development. Like, it seemed like you guys had this epiphany moment at USA Hockey and said, okay, we got to change the way we're doing this. Yeah. And is that fair? Is that right? Because there's wave after wave of talented, creative players coming from the US. Like, that's what I see anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I think the national team development program has certainly been a big part of that, getting those kids together, that they come together as 14-year-olds, as 15-year-olds. And then at 16 and 17, they kind of, they put together 23, 24 guys and they start to build them. But those practices and the level of coaches we have at the national team development program, developing kids at that age. And I think the strength program, to be honest with you, I mean, right, I think the strength program they have there is the best strength program I've ever been around. I think the commitment to developing, those players, and when you take those players out, I think the other thing that happens is a lot of kids in the USHL get a greater opportunity. So I think indirectly you're developing your second tier also, so to speak, and there's always a lot of guys in that second tier that pop, especially on this team. If you look at our team, our World Junior team this year, guys like Mazer and Nice are guys maybe in that second tier that have popped, and maybe they're getting a greater opportunity because you did take that first tier, so to speak, off. And that's kind of benefiting us. But I think it's a credit to our country. I think the other thing that's happened in our country is just there's more and more kids playing.
Yeah.
And Austin Matthews, for me, like Austin Matthews is the perfect example. Like, when I was growing up and you were growing up, Austin Matthews was a quarterback. He's 6'4", he's an athlete. He's a quarterback, and he's probably a Division I college quarterback, and maybe he's an NFL quarterback, but that athlete, decided to play hockey, and now he's, one of the top players in the NHL. So I think that's the other thing that's happening in our game is more and more athletes are choosing hockey.
That's terrific stuff, Nate. Look, trying times for everyone associated with the World Junior Hockey Championship. We know you're busy, and we thank you for taking the time to join us here on the Ray and Dregs podcast, and wish you the best in trying to defend gold.
No, thanks. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Nate.